Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're diving into something pretty personal, a collection of letters from a granddaughter, Hefina,
Okay.
to her grandmother who passed away.
hmm
It's deeply personal and, gives us a glimpse into love, loss,
Yeah.
and those family dynamics, when somebody passes away.
Right, right. It's fascinating how these letters, they reveal so much about not only like the grieving process, on a personal level,
Yeah.
but also about family relationships and how they kind of like evolve after a loss.
Absolutely. And you've provided us with quite a bit of material.
Oh, yeah.
14 entries.
14.
Each one giving us a look into Hefina's experience after her grandmother's passing
Right.
in December of 2020.
And you can tell from like the very beginning how close they were.
Oh, yeah.
They even had these nicknames for each other, Heifer and Hefina.
Oh.
You just get a sense of this very like playful, comfortable dynamic between them.
Yeah, a bit sassy too.
A little bit, yeah.
And that closeness, I think, makes the separation caused by the pandemic even more heartbreaking.
Oh, absolutely.
She mentions this intense guilt over lost time because of the COVID restrictions.
Right.
It makes you think about, how we all grappled with, we want to protect our loved ones.
Yeah.
But sometimes that protection led to more isolation, right?
It's that impossible situation that so many people faced. And she even wonders if by protecting her, by staying away,
Yeah.
it actually ended up isolating her even more.
Mm-hmm.
And that's a regret that seems to really linger for her.
It makes your heart ache for her,
Yeah.
And then on top of that guilt, her grandmother's health starts declining.
Mm.
She mentions a visit in October of 2020 where she finds her grandmother really in rough shape.
Right.
And that's when those family dynamics we mentioned really come to the surface.
Yes, it's almost like the cracks were already there.
Right, yeah.
And the stress of the situation just kind of like made them wider. She finds her grandmother alone. And there's already this tension brewing about like who's responsible for her care.
It's clear she's frustrated with her brother,
Yeah.
who is living with her grandmother, but then leaves her alone to go on a trip.
Oh, well.
And then there's the aunt who was supposed to be helping,
Right.
but wasn't quite living up to those promises.
These kinds of situations are so difficult.
Yeah.
Everyone grieves differently,
Mm-hmm.
and families often have these like unspoken expectations and resentments that just come out during times of crisis.
Definitely.
Yeah.
So she finds her grandmother alone and unwell.
Right.
They convince her to go to the hospital.
Okay.
But instead of a local hospital, she takes her to one in another city where her father lives.
Interesting.
I was curious about that decision.
Yeah, it seems like her grandmother had been receiving most of her care in that city anyway.
Okay.
So it might have just been a matter of like familiarity, having her medical history, her doctors, all in one place.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Although Hefina does later question whether it's the right call.
It's understandable to second guess those decisions made under pressure.
Oh, absolutely.
I know.
So they get to the hospital and things seem okay initially, right?
For a little while, yeah.
Okay.
She says her grandmother's spirits lift after they stabilize her blood sugar,
Okay.
but it's short-lived.
Oh, no.
The doctors diagnose her with this like really severe UTI that had actually damaged her kidneys.
Oh, wow.
And she ends up hospitalized for weeks.
Wow.
Hefina even refers to it as like the first nail in the coffin.
Oh, that's heavy.
Yeah.
And the hospital stay itself sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
She mentions issues with the staff even hinting at
Really?
realtor abuse.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah.
That's awful.
It's disturbing to read.
Yeah, what does she say?
She describes a nurse who is dismissive and physically rough with her grandmother,
Oh, no.
especially, when she had accidents because of her illness.
Oh, God.
It's heartbreaking, and it reveals a painful truth about how vulnerable we can be
Yeah.
when we're elderly and ill.
Absolutely. Especially in those settings, you're kind of at the mercy of other people.
And all of this is happening during COVID, so she's isolated from family even further.
Exactly. Imagine going through that without the support of your loved ones.
I know, it's awful.
Awful.
She talks about the toll that isolation took on her grandmother, how it felt like she was losing hope.
Yeah.
So after weeks in the hospital,
Mhm.
she's transferred to a rehab facility. Were they hoping she'd regain her strength?
That was the goal. They thought it might help her walk again.
Okay.
But according to Hefina, it only made things worse. She came home even weaker and more defeated.
And that's where the guilt she keeps mentioning seems to really take root.
Yes, she talks about her grandmother begging to come home.
Yeah.
And Hefina blames herself for not pushing for it sooner.
Yeah.
It's that impossible choice between wanting the best medical care, and then realizing that sometimes home is the best medicine,
Right.
even if it means sacrificing something else.
It's a dilemma I think many of us face
Oh, absolutely.
with aging loved ones. Yeah.
Yeah, tough choices.
There's no easy answer.
No.
So she's finally back home, receiving in-home hospice care.
Okay.
But it sounds like things are becoming even more challenging for everyone.
Yeah.
We're back, and as we get deeper into these letters, we
Yes.
enter a really, really tough period. She's sharing the final days of her grandmother's life.
Yeah.
And it's like the grief is amplified by all this family drama happening around her.
It's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
She's trying to process her own grief, but then she's also witnessing all of these, cracks in her family just getting wider.
It's one thing to read about it,
Yeah.
but to experience it firsthand.
Right.
She talks about feeling, angry and frustrated with family members who were absent during her grandmother's, last weeks.
And it's not just physical absence either. It's emotional absence, too.
Right,
Some family members are physically there,
right.
but she questions whether they're truly present, whether their concern is really genuine.
She mentions her aunt showing up late
Oh, wow.
and immediately asking about the will.
Oh, gosh.
It just feels so, I don't know,
I know.
insensitive.
It's sad reality. Death can really bring out the best and the worst in people.
Yeah.
And so often it just exposes all those unresolved conflicts and resentments that are kind of simmering beneath the surface of families.
Yeah, it's true. And she doesn't shy away from these uncomfortable truths.
Yeah.
She writes about it all with this
Yeah.
raw honesty that's both heartbreaking,
Yeah,
but also incredibly brave.
absolutely. It takes courage to be that honest, especially when you're hurting.
Yeah, I was struck by how she describes feeling like an outsider in her own family, because she's a granddaughter,
Right.
not a child,
Right.
that her grief is somehow less valid
Wow.
or important.
That's so tough.
It's just a good reminder that grief doesn't follow any rules, right?
No, not at all. It's messy. It impacts everyone differently. Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm thinking back to how she describes her grandmother's hallucinations in those final weeks.
Oh, wow.
It's clearly a very painful experience,
Right.
but there are these glimmers of dark humor woven through it.
You're right. You're right. It's that strange mix of tragedy and humor
Yeah.
that can sometimes come with these situations.
Like when she,
Yeah.
the image of her grandmother yelling, "Go to hell,"
Oh, my God.
at a hallucination,
Right.
It's both tragic and strangely funny.
It speaks to her grandmother's spirit, though, doesn't it?
Yes,
Even as her health is declining,
it does.
there's still that fight in her.
Even when she's struggling, there are these flashes of her personality, her strength, and yeah, even her humor. Like that story about her winking at her husband when he asked if she knew who he was.
Oh, wow. That's great.
Yeah.
It's a powerful reminder that even in the face of death, love and humor, they can endure.
It can.
Yeah.
So as her grandmother's condition worsens,
Mm-hmm.
Hefina kind of steps into the role of caregiver. She's
Okay.
reading to her, singing to her,
Yeah.
offering that comfort in those final moments.
It's incredibly moving, It really shows the depth of their bond.
Mm-hmm.
She becomes her grandmother's advocate when she can no longer advocate for herself.
Right.
And she doesn't shy away from, the difficult realities of the dying process either.
Right.
She talks about her grandmother's struggle to breathe, the physical decline. It's all there.
It makes her reflections on the hospice experience even more poignant.
Yeah.
She expresses this disappointment. Was this the right choice?
Right.
Questioning whether they received the support that they needed.
It highlights the complexities of navigating end-of-life care.
Mhm.
It's never easy.
No, it's clear she has, complicated feelings about it all.
Of course.
But even amidst, the chaos and the grief, there's this incredible sense of peace
Yeah.
that she kind of conveys in those final hours. She talks about encouraging her grandmother to let go, to be reunited with loved ones.
It's a powerful moment of grace and acceptance.
Mm.
You get a sense of her own, spiritual beliefs about death and the afterlife.
And then her grandmother passes away,
Okay.
but the family drama unfortunately continues.
Oh, no.
She describes her aunt's delayed arrival, how the focus seemed to shift to her grandmother's will almost immediately.
It's a reminder that loss can really amplify existing tensions
Yeah.
and bring out, like you said, the worst in some people.
It's clear the experience left her feeling, hurt and disillusioned, not only with death itself, but with her family's reaction to it.
It's a common experience, though.
Yeah.
Loss has a way of revealing these, like, fault lines within families that maybe were always there, but were just less visible.
Yeah. Yeah, and she mentioned struggling to forgive certain family members for their actions during that time.
Yeah.
It seems like she's still processing it all, even all these years later.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
Forgiveness is a process. It's not like a light switch you can just turn on and off.
Yeah.
Sometimes that process involves, like, creating these healthy boundaries to protect ourselves from further pain,
Mm-hmm. We left off with Hefina grappling with the raw, immediate aftermath of her grandmother's death, the physical realities, the emotional turmoil,
Right.
and those complicated family dynamics,
It's a lot.
Yeah, but as we get into the later letters, there's a shift.
There is.
It's subtle,
Okay.
but you sense this movement towards healing,
Yeah.
towards finding meaning,
Right.
and maybe even moments of joy amidst the sorrow.
It's not about forgetting the pain,
Right.
but learning how to, like, carry it differently.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
what struck me was the timing of the adoption papers coming to light. Right. These hidden documents that her grandmother kept safe,
Yeah.
revealing Hefina's 3 half-sisters.
Oh,
It's like a whole other, hidden branch of her family tree suddenly appears.
amazing.
And it happens just as she's dealing with the loss of her grandmother
Now.
and seeing her existing family kind of fracture.
Oh, gosh.
I wonder if it was a coincidence or something more,
It does feel like maybe the universe was offering her a different kind of family connection
Oh,
just when she needed it most.
yeah.
But like all family ties, it's complicated, right? She even mentions struggling to really connect with 2 of her sisters.
Yeah.
One reminded her too much of her biological mother, who had, abandoned them.
Yeah.
And the other was battling her own, her own demons. Mental health, addiction, it's all there.
Yeah.
It's a reminder that finding family, whether it's biological or chosen, doesn't come with any guarantees.
It doesn't, yeah. And relationships are complex, especially within families.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. But there is one sister, Sissy, who she forms this really strong bond with.
That's wonderful.
And that relationship seems to bring her real joy
Yeah.
and support.
That's so important during times of loss.
It is finding that connection
Yeah.
amidst all the loss and the disappointment.
Yeah, to have someone to lean on.
Yeah, it must have been incredible.
It must have been.
And it's not just these new family ties that bring her comfort.
Right.
She also writes about finding solace in these everyday reminders of her grandmother.
Like what kind of thing?
Like the porch swing.
The porch swing.
It becomes this potent symbol of their shared history.
Yeah, you can almost picture them on that swing, right?
Yeah.
Deep in conversation, sharing stories.
Finding comfort in each other's presence.
Exactly. It becomes more than just a swing,
Yeah.
It's this, tangible link to her grandmother and all those memories.
Exactly. And speaking of memories,
Yeah.
it's fascinating how she uses writing
Right.
to process her grief.
It can be so powerful.
It is.
In those letters to her grandmother,
Yeah.
she's able to pour out all of those raw emotions, the pain, the anger, the confusion,
Yeah.
and eventually the acceptance.
And she even writes about starting a podcast,
Oh, wow, really?
inspired by these very letters.
That's amazing.
It is.
Full circle.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
It makes you think about storytelling and the therapeutic power of giving voice to our experiences, both the good and the bad.
Absolutely. It's like her grandmother's spirit, her love of a good story. It kind of lives on through her.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
It is, but as Hefner herself acknowledges
Yeah.
healing,
It's a journey.
it's not linear.
Straight line.
There are setbacks, moments of doubt, times when the grief feels as raw as ever.
That's so real, though, right? It can hit you like a wave sometimes.
It does, especially when her youngest half-sister passes away.
Oh, no.
It's another layer of grief.
That's so much loss.
It's another complex loss to process.
It makes you reflect on the fragility of life, doesn't it? And how these events can just really shake us.
They do, yeah. And yet, through it all, she keeps going.
Yeah.
She finds ways to honor her grandmother's memory, to keep her spirit alive, not just in her own heart,
Yeah.
but in her children's lives, too.
How'd she do that?
Like, the teddy bear made from her grandmother's pajamas
Oh,
that her
wow.
son cherishes,
Oh, that's sweet.
or how she continues her grandmother's tradition of making banana pudding
Oh, I love
for
that.
her birthday.
Keeping those traditions alive.
It is, these little rituals
Yeah.
of remembrance
Yeah.
become rituals of healing.
Exactly.
It's a beautiful reminder that even in death, love finds a way
Yeah,
to bridge that gap.
it does.
It's about finding ways to keep our loved ones alive in our hearts
Mm,
and our actions.
absolutely. It's about recognizing that grief is not something to get over. It's something we integrate into our lives.
Right.
It's something we carry with us as we move forward.
As we reach the end of these letters, we realize that Hefina's journey is ongoing.
Of course, it's a lifelong journey.
It is. She's found, these new sources of love and support.
Mm.
But she's also made difficult choices, like distancing herself from certain family members
Yeah.
to protect her own well-being.
Sometimes those are the hardest choices to make,
Yeah.
but they're so important for our own healing.
Yeah, she leaves us with a powerful message. Grief is not weakness.
Oh, it's not.
It's a testament to the depth of our love and the enduring power of connection.
Beautifully said.
And sometimes I think the bravest act is to acknowledge our pain,
Absolutely.
allow ourselves to be vulnerable,
Yeah.
and find comfort in those memories.
The memories we hold dear.
Yes.
That's it.
Hefina's story reminds us that even in the darkest times, there's always hope,
Always.
always the possibility of healing, and always the enduring power of love to light our way.
That's a beautiful thought to end on.
It is. It makes you wonder how you would cope with similar challenges, How do you hold on to hope when faced with loss and difficult family dynamics? Maybe that's something for all of us to reflect on.